Hi, and welcome back to the Halcyon, the Legacy Continues podcast. Thank you so much for joining us again. And today we're going to talk about a topic that I've been kind of interested in. You probably heard this a little bit as you've been seeing some of the videos that have been uploaded. You have heard some sounds that you have not been familiar with in the past, and some music that is original to Halcyon the Legacy Continues. And I am lucky enough to have with me the composer himself, Tom. As a friend of mine would say, how the hell are ya?
I'm doing well. This is weird to be on this side. I'm normally in control of this podcast thing. But thank you. This music's part of my life, just like it is a lot of people's, right? It means something to you, and I was just happy to put this together. So happy to have the chance to be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit curious about that. So there's music in the world. There's a lot of it. Of course, there's some that's available without copyright issues or anything. What made you sit down and say, no, this deserves something special?
Yeah, I just think it was one day. It's as we're ramping up to these events coming in tandem with Halcyon. It's like how do we really make them pop? Because we talked about feedback on previous podcast episode, and some of that feedback too was just like, we got some story here, but we want it in a grander sense. So I've always been a proponent of music as the magic maker. When you go to Disney World, walking down Main Street, USA, the first thing I think of is that music. How jovial that makes you feel walking down Main Street, seeing the Disneyland, or Disney World and Disneyland castles. Like, music is a magic maker. Music has been there for me my whole life, so it's just like, how cool would it be? And I probably thought of it at first as like, how cool would it be for Elias Orion and the Cause to have a theme song, And I thought about picking up my bass, and I'm like, heavy metal is not really Star Wars, so I kind of just like jumped into GarageBand. It's an excellent app for music, minded people. And just started to create. I had ideas in mind. I found the right sounds, and then I connected from start to finish. And we started with our 3 recruiting agents, and I don't know. I found what sounded right for every single one of them.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting. What I noticed when I first listened to each of those themes, there's sort of a motif that kind of runs through all of them. It has a similar feel. It feels like it's from the same world. But you do there's a little bit more of an intense, like a tension that's in the Dathomiri piece. Yes. And then there's a little bit more of an industrial feel to the Varric, the First Order piece. Which it was really interesting to see that. How did you kind of narrow in on what you wanted to pick up from each character?
Yeah, so for Avant Varric, right, the First Order, you think marching, you think trumpets, you think something aggressive in your face a little bit. But, Avant's not, he's not Tarkin, right? He's not quite, he's kind of lawful, lawful evil in a sense, he's not going to shoot anybody in the face, but we put the songs together all about the character, right? And if you listen to Avant's theme, the Order of Chandrila, there's order and it's very aggressive, especially in the middle and the end, but then there's bits and pieces of a flow up and down, especially as he transitions into a relic raider. Each of these songs are telling a story. And then you go to Vesper Grey, our Night Sister. It starts off very orchestral, right? When you think of Night Sister, you think kind of evil and church organ and something that you're worshiping and praying to, right? And that's what these Night Sisters do. So it builds up, and then the strings come in as it building, and then it builds up to that pop, right? That real kind of tense orchestral drive. And then in Vesper's theme too, there's a lot of tonal changes because not all Night Sisters are bad. They get some bad reps, right? Let's not forget what Night Sisters went through. And then with Elias Orion's, it's really in the Cause. Elias Orion is like Stone Cold Steve Austin, DTA, don't trust anybody. So it's like, I think of very much of like, for my character, like a very spy, very tense, very dramatic in a sense, very just like driven.
There's a lot of motion. There's
Yeah.
a lot of continuing motion that drives the piece forward, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And like, go ahead.
Continue.
I was just gonna say like that opening for the cause, like dun 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 dun. It's just like like the buildup of, it's telling a story of everybody's character.
Yeah. So on that note, do you have any sort of last piece of advice for someone that wants to kind of get started, come up with something for their own character?
Oh God, yeah, sure. Take what inspires you, right? If you're doing it in the Star Wars sense, right? It's. I think sometimes people get a little bit clouded in a sense where they think like, oh, I have to make this, I have to, make it sound like Star Wars. Well, you don't necessarily have to. This world that we're creating is very much what we want to do, right? It's how you want to be, right? So take what inspires you, and just it's easy just to say do it, but just start somewhere, right? Like in your mind, think I want it to sound like this, and then just start. Just if you're a creative mind, if you're a musician to begin with, once you start, you can't stop. Like Erin, aren't you a harpist? Don't you play the harp?
This is true.
Okay, all right. Do you want to collab on a theme for Zilla?
Hey, maybe someday. I'll never say never. What I'm hearing is do or do not. There is no try.
Exactly. Do or do not. There is no try. That's
okay.
Exactly right.
Well, Tom, aka Elias Orion, thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for hosting it. It was nice to sit on this side for once, for the cause.
And fair hunting.
Fair hunting, indeed.